Hi, I'm Alina, and this is the story of how the digital world I built to save my family was nearly auctioned off piece by the very people I saved. For 5 years, I was the architect of an online community that touched millions of lives. All from a laptop in my childhood bedroom. I learned that in the new gold rush of tech, even your own family will try to sell your soul for user data, and they'll call it good business. It all began in the dusty, quiet aisles of the Reading Corner, my mother's bookstore. It was her life's dream, a charming but failing relic in a world that was rapidly moving online. The scent of old paper and brewing tea was the backdrop to my childhood, but by the time I was in my 20s, it was the scent of impending bankruptcy. My mother, Eleanor, would just sigh, straightening books that no one was buying. People don't gather like this anymore, honey. They have their phones. My older sister, Chloe, was the family's shining star. She had a sharp marketing degree from a top university and a high-flying job at a massive tech corporation in the city. During her brief, pitying visits, she'd look around the empty store and shake her head. "Mom, you need to liquidate. This is a passion project, not a viable business model. It's time to let it go." She saw the bookstore as a sentimental anchor holding our mother back. I saw it differently. I wasn't a business major like Chloe. I was the quiet one, the nerd who had taught herself to code while pursuing a library science degree. I saw the problem not as a lack of interest in books, but as a lack of community. People were lonely. They were desperate to connect over shared passions. My mother was right, they had their phones. So, I decided to meet them there, while Chloe was learning how to optimize ad revenue and drive engagement for a soulless corporation. I was in my room, fueled by cheap coffee and a burning idea. I started building an app. I called it BookNook. It wasn't just another e-reader. It was a digital version of our bookstore's soul. It was a social platform where users could create profiles based on their favorite genres, join virtual book clubs, share highlights and notes directly in the margins of ebooks, and discover new authors through recommendations from real people. Not just algorithms. It was designed to foster connection, not just consumption. I poured 2 years of my life into it. Every line of code, every pixel of the user interface, was mine. When I launched it, it was small and buggy, but it was authentic. I seeded the first communities myself, using the bookstore's few remaining loyal customers. Then, something magical happened. It started with a popular book blogger, then a mention on a podcast. Suddenly, BookNook caught fire. It went viral. Within a year, we had 1 million users. We were the feel-good story of the tech world, the small-town app built with love that was bringing people together. The app was free, but I introduced a premium tier with features like hosting larger book clubs and access to exclusive author Q&As. The money started coming in, enough to not only save my mother's bookstore but to transform it into our quirky, beloved headquarters. My mother was stunned. "I don't understand any of this, Alina," she said, her eyes wide as she looked at the new life I'd breathed into her dream, "but you did it." That's when Chloe came home. Her high-flying tech job had disappeared in a wave of corporate restructuring. She arrived with 2 suitcases and a head full of unsolicited advice. She saw the user numbers, the glowing press, the revenue streams, and her eyes lit up with a familiar, predatory gleam. "This is incredible, Alina," she said, her voice dripping with manufactured sincerity. "You've built an amazing product. But you're a creator, not a strategist. To really scale this, you need a business mind." She pitched a new vision to our mother. A vision filled with terms like monetization funnels, data leveraging, and synergistic partnerships. She argued that I was too sentimental, too focused on the user experience and not enough on the shareholder value. My mother, who never understood the app but was mesmerized by her older daughter's corporate confidence, agreed. Chloe has experience with this kind of thing, Alina. It's for the best. And so, Booknook Incorporated was officially formed. Chloe appointed herself CEO. I was given the title of Chief Product Officer, a fancy way of saying I was demoted to the head of the IT department. I tried to argue, but I was outvoted. I loved my creation too much to walk away, so I stayed, hoping I could protect it from the inside. The next 3 years were a study in erosion. While I worked with my small team of developers to improve the app and nurture the community, Chloe was on a publicity tour. She was on the cover of Women in Tech magazines, a keynote speaker at industry conferences, and a celebrated founder who talked eloquently about the company she had built. She took credit for my code, my design, my entire philosophy behind the scenes. We were at war. She wanted to sell user reading data to third-party advertisers. I refused, citing our promise of privacy. She wanted to fill the app with intrusive pop-up ads. I argued it would destroy the immersive experience. She wanted to acquire a cheap, list-based book review site and merge its soulless content, gutting our community-led discovery model. Each of her ideas was a dagger aimed at the heart of what made Booknook special. "You're thinking like a librarian, Alina," she would scream at me in board meetings. "I'm thinking like a CEO of a 10 million user platform." The climax arrived at our 5th anniversary party. Chloe had rented out a sterile, minimalist art gallery, a place with no books and no soul. It was filled with venture capitalists, advertisers, and tech journalists. My small team of developers and I stood awkwardly in a corner, looking completely out of place. Chloe took the stage in a sharp, expensive power suit, radiating confidence. 5 years ago, she began, I had a vision to revolutionize how people connect over literature. I felt a bitter laugh rise in my throat. She continued, we have built an incredible platform. But the tech landscape evolves, and so must we. Her eyes scanned the room and settled on me, a flicker of cold triumph in them. To move forward, we must be willing to shed the parts of our past that hold us back. We must be ruthless in our pursuit of growth. My blood ran cold. I knew this. Was it? For too long, our growth has been hampered by a certain resistance to proven monetization strategies, she said, her voice laced with false regret. A hobbyist mentality can build a community, but it cannot build an empire. That is why I am announcing a new, aggressive strategy to unlock the true value of our user base. And to lead this new chapter, I am thrilled to announce we have hired a new Chief Technology Officer from Google, Mr. David Chen. A man in a slick suit stood up and waved. She wasn't done. My sister, Alina, the original architect of our prototype, has been an invaluable part of our journey. But her skills are in product incubation, not in enterprise-level platform management. It is time for her to step back from leadership and return to a technical role that better suits her talents. The public humiliation was a physical blow. In front of the entire industry, she had painted me as a naive coder, an amateur who was now a liability. A relic. I looked at my mother in the front row, expecting to see some flicker of protest. Instead, she was looking up at Chloe with tears of pride in her eyes, nodding along as her golden child sealed my fate. I stood there, frozen, as the whispers started around me. My creation, my community, was being handed over to people who saw them not as human beings, but as data points to be sold. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I simply turned and walked toward the exit. As I walked, every head turned to watch the public execution. Chloe thought she had one. She had the company, the investors, and the C-suite of her dreams. But as I pushed open the gallery door and stepped out into the night, a small, grim smile played on my lips. In her rush to monetize my dream, Chloe had forgotten one very important thing. She had forgotten that every single one of our 10 million users had agreed to a contract when they signed up. A terms of service agreement that I had written myself, late one night, 2 years ago. An agreement with one very special, community-first clause she had never, ever bothered to read. Tomorrow was going to be a very interesting day for BookNook. Incorporated. The gallery doors clicked shut behind me, sealing me off from the life I had built. But there was no grief, only the quiet hum of a machine powering on. Chloe thought she had won a corporate takeover. She didn't realize she had just initiated a system command I had written years ago. My first stop wasn't home, it was a 24-hour cafe with strong Wi-Fi. I didn't need to break into their servers, I was still, for the moment, a user. The most powerful user of all. I let them have their victory for 48 hours. I watched from the sidelines as tech blogs buzzed with the news of BookNook's bold new direction and the hiring of their new CTO. Chloe was everywhere, giving interviews about unlocking potential and data-driven growth. She was so high on her own supply she didn't see the precipice she was sprinting towards. On the third morning, it happened. Every BookNook user received an email and a pop-up in the app. Our terms of service and privacy policy have been updated. It was written in Chloe's signature corporate speak, full of vague reassurances about enhancing your experience while burying the key changes, the right to sell anonymized user data to third-party marketing firms, and the integration of targeted advertising based on reading habits. To continue using the app, users had to click agree. This was the tripwire I had been waiting for. I logged into my own BookNook account, the one with founder ID number 001, and began to type. I didn't post a bitter rant. I wrote a calm, detailed open letter to the community I had built. I titled it, A Promise We Made Together. Hi everyone, it began. This is Alina, the original developer of BookNook. Many of you know my story. I built this platform because I believe in the power of community and the sanctity of our private reading lives. Today, the new leadership of BookNook Incorporated has asked you to agree to a new set of terms. Before you do, I want to remind you of a promise embedded in the very first terms of service we all agreed to. It's called the Community Covenant, Section 8, Clause 4. I then pasted the clause directly into the post, in the event of any material change to BookNook's core mission, including but not limited to the sale of user data or a fundamental shift away from community-led discovery. Such changes cannot be implemented unilaterally. A platform-wide vote must be held, requiring a 60% majority of voting users for ratification. As the founding user, Alina Peterson's account shall automatically cast votes equivalent to 20% of the total active user base to safeguard the original mission. The post exploded. Within an hour, it was the most shared and commented on item in the platform's history. The hashtag #IStandWithAlina started trending on every social media platform. My community covenant was being screenshotted and shared everywhere. Users who had blindly clicked agree were now frantically trying to find a way to retract it. The app's rating on the app stores plummeted from 4.9 stars to 1.2 in a single afternoon. The community wasn't just upset. They were organized, and they were using the very tools I had built for them to fight back. The next morning, I received a frantic, screaming call from Chloe. "What have you done? Our investors are calling, our advertisers are pausing their campaigns. You've weaponized the users against us. You have to take that post down." "I can't do that, Chloe," I said, my voice perfectly calm. "I'm just reminding our community of a promise you made to them when you became CEO. You did read the full terms of service before you took over, right?" The silence on the other end was my answer. I continued, "I'll be at the office in an hour. I suggest you, Mom, and your new CTO are all there. We have some things to discuss." When I walked into the bookstore, the atmosphere was funereal. My mother stood by the counter looking pale and shaken. Chloe and her new CTO, David Chen, were waiting in the glass-walled office we'd built in the back. Chloe's face was a thundercloud of rage. "This little stunt is going to cost you everything," she hissed as I entered. "We'll sue you for tortious interference." You'll do nothing," I interrupted, placing my laptop on the conference table. "Because you are about to have much bigger problems." I looked at David Chen. "Mr. Chen, you came from Google. You understand infrastructure. You've probably been looking at our server architecture, right? Wondering why we're not hosted on AWS. Or a major cloud provider?" He nodded, looking wary. "Your setup is unconventional. A local data center." "That's right," I said. "A local data center owned by a friend of mine. The 5-year hosting contract for Booknook's entire backend, our servers, our databases, all 10 million user accounts, is not with Booknook Incorporated. It's with me, personally. And there's a clause in that contract, a very special one, that states the contract is null and void if I am no longer in a senior leadership position overseeing product and privacy. My lawyer sent them a notification of my demotion 2 days ago. They have just informed me that they are triggering the termination clause. In 48 hours, they are scheduled to wipe the servers clean. All of Booknook will simply vanish." The color drained from David Chen's face. He looked at Chloe in horror. "Is this true? You built a 10 million user platform on a personal handshake deal? She never told us." Chloe shrieked, turning on me. "You never asked," I replied simply. "You were too busy designing a new logo and giving interviews. You saw the house, but you never bothered to check the foundations." I turned back to the 3 of them. "So, to summarize, in 48 hours, your entire company will cease to exist. But even if it didn't, you would still be facing a mandatory platform-wide vote to approve your new strategy. A vote that, per the terms you inherited, you would almost certainly lose, thanks to the 20% founders vote I hold. Your investors would flee, and you would be left with nothing but a mountain of debt and a spectacular public failure. Your career in tech, Chloe, would be over." My mother finally spoke, her voice a trembling whisper. "Alina, please. This is a family." "You chose a side, Mom," I said, the words hurting me more than I let on. "You stood there and beamed with pride while Chloe dismantled my life's work. This isn't about family anymore. This is about survival. The survival of a community you both tried to exploit." I looked at Chloe. "But, because a small part of me still remembers the sister I used to have, I am offering you a way out. 2 options. Option 1, you do nothing. You watch as your company implodes. The servers are wiped, the company becomes an empty shell, and I walk away with the user community's trust, ready to build something new. You can explain the total loss to your investors yourself. Chloe stared at me, her eyes burning with a hatred so pure it was almost impressive. And option 2? Option 2, I said, pushing a pre-prepared folder across the table. You and Mom signed these documents. They are your resignations and a full transfer of all your shares to me, for the price of $1. Chloe gets a generous severance package, tied to a strict non-disclosure agreement. Mom gets to keep this bookstore, free and clear, forever. I will then immediately take over as CEO, halt the server termination, and post an update to the community that the proposed changes have been rejected and the original mission is secure. The company, my company, will survive. You want me to just hand you everything? Chloe choked out. You have nothing to hand over, I said, my voice hard as steel. You are the captain of a sinking ship, and I am the only one with a lifeboat. Your choice. I stood up. You have 1 hour. After that, I'm going to go get a coffee and watch the company I built burn to the ground, and I will feel nothing but relief. An hour later, I was the sole owner and CEO of Booknook Incorporated. My first act was to post a simple message to the platform: the community covenant has been honored. The proposed changes are cancelled. I'm back. Let's get back to reading. The post broke our record for likes within minutes. The bookstore is still our headquarters, a constant reminder of our humble, authentic roots. My mother works there, quieter now, our relationship a fragile tapestry we are slowly trying to reweave. Chloe took the severance and disappeared. I hear she works in marketing for a soulless retail company, her brilliant tech career ending not with a bang, but a whimpered. I learned that a community is a living thing. You can't buy it or sell its trust. It must be earned, promise by promise, day by day. They tried to put a price tag on my creation, to strip it for parts and sell it to the highest bidder. They forgot that the real value was never in the code or the data, it was in the trust of the people who used it. And that was one asset they could never, ever own.